Welcome to the Podcast Editor Mastermind Show. I am Steve Stewart along with my co-host Mark Deal, and we have a special guest today, Andrew Armstrong, who is a content creator, consultant, and storyteller. He's passionate about helping individuals and businesses craft social media and digital content strategies. I've gotten to meet Andrew. I attended a session that he was the special guest for in a local podcaster meetup in Colorado Springs. Andrew, thanks for joining us here today.
My pleasure.
Man, you've got some history in the YouTube space, and a lot of what you're doing, at least as far as I understand, is managing some YouTube video strategies for a very large company. And what you talked about that I came to see was about YouTube thumbnails. And that's what I really want to talk about is video thumbnails. Can you tell us, first of all, why are thumbnails so important to YouTube?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start off with rule number one that all creators and everybody should really internalize. No one knows you and no one cares about you. Starting at that as your baseline will really help you overcome the sense like, well, I thought I made a good show. And the first thing that anybody's going to encounter with your YouTube content is your thumbnail. That's where it begins. That's where you stop them in their tracks of scrolling through thousands and thousands of options. You need them to choose you. And it's your thumbnail that starts that whole process.
It's not the title of the video?
The first thing that they're going to look at is your visual. And then they're going to look at it. Then they're going to go down. And so the title and the thumbnail work in tandem. One is stop the eye. One is to say a little more informative of, oh, I'd be interested in that. And then you move them on to the next step. Without this gate, if they don't pass through it, it doesn't matter how crisp your video and sound and audio are. They're never going to find you. So that's your number one thing.
That sounds like my YouTube browsing. Steve, is that pretty much the same for you? You search for something on YouTube and you look at the images and then from there, the titles and descriptions?
Yeah, the thumbnails always get me first. So admittedly, yes, but I wanted to point out the importance of it because
Certainly.
When it comes to podcasts, images are not as important. Most podcasts are audio, but then when we're putting our content on YouTube, that thumbnail takes primary position.
Different rules apply. Yep, I agree.
I think Andrew agrees too.
Yeah, it's an entirely visual platform. People are going, now they may turn on your video and then stop watching and just listen. So it functions as a podcast then. But you are in a visual space. And I found in my experience that you have to therefore also craft your YouTube videos from the mindset that I'm making a YouTube video. I'm not just making an audio only thing. They both need to be strongly considered when you're creating your show, when you're including visual dynamics. If you want it to be successful on YouTube, YouTube's a visual platform.
Do we get into this right now, Mark? Because this is getting away from thumbnails. You said when you're going to be putting some on YouTube, you got to think about that audience. Whereas if I'm creating a podcast, I'm thinking about my audio and video audience. But to make it successful on YouTube, we got to play to the algorithm. We got to satisfy the algorithm, right? Which is all visuals, all hit me in the first 30 seconds. Is that what you're saying?
Well, let's clarify that the term algorithm can feel like a distant cyborg that controls everything and you must appease it with SEO and it's all about your key terms and all of these things. Really, when you think algorithm, think audience, because that's largely what is driving whether you are recommended or not is, did people click on this video? How much of this video did people watch? Did they share it with other people? Did they comment on this video? And so the algorithm is really just audience behavior that says to YouTube, oh, this is something that people enjoy. YouTube wants to keep them on the platform as long as possible because it can run more paid ads. And on your less cynical days, you might think they genuinely want to connect people to content. That on their really core idea of what YouTube is founded on, it's connecting different voices and different stories and different helpful information. And so it's not going to know it's largely moved away from, are your hashtags correct, and are your are you tricking the algorithm correctly? You have to make really good content that people like, and it's not good unless people like it, unless they interact with it and consume it. And so that's the number one kind of, I would say, maybe misunderstanding or misperception of algorithm. It's not that you don't do those other things. It's becoming less and less important that you do. Make a show that people listen to and watch and engage with.
And
Number one.
And within YouTube, it's usually a discovery thing where you're not subscribed to it. You do get to subscribing to a channel later, but as you're scrolling, it's all new content, it's all new creators, and that thumbnail you're saying is so important to get them to stop and give it a chance before you can even grow that audience.
And it puts you in a tricky spot, because the user behavior is, one, if it's just on their home screen and they're just scrolling, they're not looking for anything in particular. Then you have to emerge out of, not only does the thumbnail stop them and the title stop them, but then they're going to look at the third thing is, how many views does it have already? And it's that social approval score. Wow, this thumbnail is great. That's got my attention. This title's interesting, but 26 people watch this. It's probably not very good, which is not like necessarily reflective of reality, but you also need to overcome that. And that's why we won't get into it here, but getting that credit score up using shorts, using other social medias to drive to your video, that becomes part of the selling point of your content.
So thumbnails are the bomb. It's the first thing we've got to focus on if we're talking about trying to make a video perform on YouTube. Do you have any examples of good and bad artwork that you can share with us so we can get an idea what we're looking for?
Yeah, and we're in the non-visual part, so I will describe this.
Correct. Yeah, our podcast listeners are working out, doing dishes, mowing the lawn. So we'll just kind of verbally describe what we think is good and what we think is bad.
Great. So it will depend on your content type. So for example, I've been getting into trying to understand the crypto market recently. And for that, I've seen a lot of thumbnails, which are just charts, like a line graph going up or down, and then there's a red circle on different parts. That is particularly relevant for the person who's trying to understand that space. I would say if you have a show and you're generally just talking, you have a guest on, like the thumbnail for this episode, perhaps. What we've seen really work is you want large text, 3 to 5 words. That text works in tandem with your title. But so this text needs to be more expressive. It should capture an emotional feeling quite often. For example, if a video is about how to support your local charities better, that's the actual title, then the thumbnail should say something like, they need your support, right? It works together, and this is the emotional reaction. That's just the text part. Typically, you may want to highlight a key word to make it stand out. So you'll have that. We've found that it's most effective on sort of the right side of the picture. You want it large. Your logo, you do want some consistency. So your branded logo will be in the bottom left, not in the bottom right. The bottom right is where the time, the length, the duration of your episode will show up from a viewer's perspective. Don't put anything in the bottom right corner. So you got your text over here, your logo kind of small in the left-hand corner, and then an expressive face, typically of the host or the guest of the show. You want that taking up the left side of the screen. We've seen from left to right, this functionality generally performs better in that you capture the face is making some expressive emotion. You have someone from the charity or a guest who's looking kind of emotional, like, man, it's such hard work that I have to go through, but I'm doing it for a good cause. I'm gonna keep going with it. That captures the eye moves to the right. This may be actually different in foreign markets who function differently in the way they interact, but the face kind of profile, typically like chest up. You can use AI to get rid of the microphone. You may have value in keeping the microphone. Again, if it's based for this, I'd keep the microphone because this is about people doing this thing with the microphone. You're trying to attract other podcasters. And so I'd frame it there on the left, text on the right. And then you want a color scheme that you're going to and we'll get into later testing to figure out what is working for all of this. But a color scheme that's fairly simple, maybe 2 colors. We found success in like a darkened corners and then a strong solid color in the middle as your backing.
Like a gradient type thing?
You could make a gradient. We found that I just have a box, like a triangle in each corner that's black, then I can move it forward and I can adjust the gradient appearance so that if someone's head needs to be a little higher up, then I can move the gradient more manually. I'm very much a MacGyver kind of approach to just about everything I've learned. Kind of do things that end up working, but you're kind of, if you looked behind the scenes, it'd be a big mess. And so that would be kind of, for my podcast show, we found faces work almost 9 times out of 10. Not even that. 99 times out of 100, a face works way better than stock footage, or even a graphic image. Depends on your content. Another example, I'm really enjoying a podcast that talks about Middle-earth lore. And the guy does a breakdown on yesterday was Morgoth. Who is he? Why does he matter? So he has a picture of Morgoth, who's the Dark Lord before Sauron, just to fill your viewers in. And so that is clearly what the video is about. And so that becomes much more the selling point. And the video length is only like 13 minutes. So it's on a very specific topic. If it's episode 47 of your podcast, then what people have grown, why would they keep listening to you? It's because of you. So you need to be there in that podcast as a through line. I would then, the only last element, so this is in your testing, is I've also seen a lot of success with the host on the left, the text kind of in the middle, and on the right is a stock footage or a graphic of what the episode is about. And so this you'd have the desperate looking person on the left. They need your support in the middle. And on the right would be a nicely arrayed graphic of a charity or something that looks kind of, wow, that's a lot of hard work, or a bunch of empty boxes that need packed with supplies or whatever the case. But having that through line of the person, particularly the host of the show, over and over and over again, that continues to perform the best.
I like it. And maybe you could even, if you don't want to focus on the host, but maybe have the guest image and
Absolutely.
then that title there. And that way, but it's not always the host that's doing various facial expressions.
Correct. So
the expressive emotions. Yeah.
There's the Mr. Beast approach, which is a exaggerated mouth. And if your content's meant for a younger audience, then that's sensationalizing. So again, you're going to make, we're going to get into this, 3 thumbnails per video. And so you're going to have, typically what I do is one of the host with stock, one of the host and the guest, and then one of the host and the guest are both in there, and then one of just the guest. And it depends on the guest. If your guest is a bigger name than you are, definitely leverage them more often. And so people who recognize them, if I had, say, Joe Rogan or Trump on my show, they're on the thumbnail. I'm not on the thumbnail, right? Because that's way bigger appeal to people. I would probably in that instance capture you in the same room, or you like side by side, so they showed you. So there's not one solid rule. You're going to have to test over and over, and it depends on your niche. But that's a generally effective framework.
Nice. And that kind of goes into, I guess, the next thing we're going to talk about, ask or explore is you talked about the 3 different thumbnails, things you want to try. But that is to say, you don't need to pick the one perfect thumbnail and hope that's the best one, right? YouTube has tools to where you can try different ones and see which ones work the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So this only came out about 8-9 months ago. It's March right now. And before you just put out your thumbnail, then you'd hope it work, and then you'd replace it. You know, if you're following best practice, you'd replace it if it wasn't working, and you'd feel this out. Then there came tools like TubeBuddy, which is a really fantastic tool. There's no sponsorship, but it's a tool that helps you not only A/B test thumbnails, but SEO and tags and chapters and optimizations and all that. So there would be third-party tools that would then let you A/B test. About 8-9 months ago, YouTube came out with their thumbnail tester, where you can upload 3 thumbnails, and it's going to, as you gain impressions, as your thumbnail appears in different people's feeds, it's going to randomly pick one of those 3. And what it's doing is not the click-through rate, which is very interesting and was counterintuitive at the beginning. Not which thumbnail gets people to click the most, but which thumbnail ends up in the largest share of watch time. So the people who clicked this thumbnail watched 10 minutes of my video versus 8 and versus 6. So the 10 minutes of watch time ended up being the winner. And you can run those 3. It'll, as you reach a certain threshold of impressions to get a good sample size, it will pick a winner. Hopefully you need like 5% variation for one to be a standout winner. Otherwise it's inconclusive results. And then it will automatically, let's say you make them and you go on vacation for 6 months and you're just gone. It will then show the winner of those 3 moving forward. What you can go in and do, and I would recommend as best practice, is the first time you're setting out on all this thumbnail journey is you create 3 of the different types I described: host, guest, just host, or host with graphic, or just graphic if that's your kind of content. And you're going to test those, and you're going to do 10 videos running those tests. And you're going to see, is there a consistent through line of what my audience reacts to the most? Then if you're like, okay, they really like the host and guest the most, by enough of a margin that I can say that's the way I'm going to go about it. Then what you do is you're then going to go back to those videos and you're going to run 3 versions of that guest plus host. And what you're going to be changing is the text in the middle. And you're going to see which one of these texts is the most appealing to my audience. And you're going to run that again. And then after that result comes through, you could do this forever. And it's one of the best practices on YouTube this is a full-time effort to get the most out of it, is you're also going to go and change the title of the video too. And you're going to be looking for what's the click-through rate, what's the variety of different elements to get people interested in my content. Once again, rule number 1, no one cares about you and no one knows who you are. It's so like the humility that it took me to like really like come to grips with that. It changed everything when I was actively fighting for people's attention. With that mentality, everything improved.
Is that why sometimes I see videos that have been uploaded 3 years ago, but it's like the best gear of current year here? But that video is like 3 years old, but they've gone through and they've changed the title, they've changed the image to make it like, oh, the best gear of 2025.
Right. You don't want to lie to if that's not actually the best gear of 25, then you'll want to avoid that, because it's going to end up like people like, oh, this isn't actually relevant once they get into the video, and that's going to kind of crash things. But what and
to your point, they're looking for how long people are not just clicking on the video, but watching it. So it's not like, hey, let me put a picture of a famous person in here, but really I'm talking about some technical gear. Sure, people may click on the famous person, but they're going to immediately bounce out when they realize I'm talking about gear.
Correct. And it's such an important thing you've got to move beyond views into the actual, like, what really demonstrates that I made effective content. It's not views. It's the watch hours for your channel. And it's the watch percent. How much of the video are they actually watching? And are they commenting and saying things? Are they sharing it with other people? That's a really good indicator of, wow, someone thought this was so good that someone else needed to see it. Views are a very surface level. They could come in, watch 2 seconds, oh, this is trash, and leave. And you could go and say, oh, I got 1 million views on my video. But that doesn't demonstrate that you connected with anyone, helped anyone.
I've got a question, and this is something I run into as a podcast producer, director, manager, editor, is sometimes I'm working with clients and they point to a peer of theirs or a competitor or a past work. And there'll be a video that has like 20,000 views for a channel that has like 3 subscribers. And it just doesn't, it really doesn't pass it doesn't feel real to me. Now I realize this isn't maybe a YouTube thumbnail discussion, but it kind of alludes to the whole, are you really looking at views? And when I see something where somebody's touting like, oh, this person has got like 100-fold more impressions, views on this video than what they're getting on their podcast, but their YouTube channel has like 3 subscribers, no comments, nothing at all. What are some of your thoughts about that? And is YouTube being smart about it?
Well, again, it goes to absolutely that watch through rate and that watch time. So you can buy views, you can buy subscribers, you can buy subscribers from overseas. There's whole farms and mills of people with one person has 1,000 accounts and they'll all come through. And YouTube is savvy to that more and more. Again, each one of those bot views or bot subscribers needs to actually watch through your video for it to really matter to YouTube at this stage. There was certainly a time when, I've got my YouTube plaque behind me. People would buy subscribers. Here's your YouTube plaque. And like, yay, look how successful I am. Pay to win is not anywhere in the space of really effective content. So there is a disparity, and this is where a discerning eye. So I vet influencers and people we want to bring in to collaborate or be guests on shows or those kind of things. And at the very surface level pass, you're going to look at subscribers. Then I have what I call the 10-10-10 rule, which is 10%. I need to see, are there videos getting 10% of their subscriber count? And I go into the video. Is the video getting 10% of those views as comments, as shares? Everything else is kind of hidden. We can't look in the back end of the people's channels to really see what is your watch through rate and what are your total watch hours for this month. But that 10-10-10 has worked pretty well in discerning, is this a legit channel with legit content with an audience, an actual real living audience who's consuming their content? Or is this someone who went viral once and then never again? Is this someone who's got a big subscriber count but no engagement, so it's a dead channel, or it was inflated at some point? Or the people with the 3 subscribers who has 20,000 views, that's not impossible, because subscribers are less and less a metric that YouTube cares about. You would actually rather have low subscribers and high views and watch through rate than the opposite, because more and more people are being fed what they watch, not who they're subscribed to. It's helpful if they're subscribed. They have a whole tab that's dedicated to that, but the default tab is the home tab. And people on social media, rule number 2, people are lazy and want to do the least amount of work possible. And it's just the behavior of the audience. And so really understanding that, you're going to make it as little effort as possible, and you're going to try and be where they're going to be at most.
It's no surprise to me that YouTube, when you think of video, you think of YouTube. When people say video podcast, they're talking about a YouTube channel. That's it. They don't even think about the other platforms. I mean, they might mention Spotify, but it's all YouTube because they're smart. All the stuff you've been mentioning is just blowing my mind at how smart it is. And the same thing in podcasting exists with the measurement of downloads as YouTube is with, the watches and the, subscribers. Those don't really matter. It's the analytics behind the consumption of it that's so important. I think podcasters miss that. I think we're getting a lot more visibility to that recently. Maybe that's because there's so much talk about YouTube and the analytics are the thing. But one thing that's different between a traditional podcast and, we'll just say, a YouTube channel is that we were talking. So Mark and I just had a conversation. It's the previous episode that was released to this one about podcast artwork, show artwork, and episodic artwork. When it comes to YouTube, it's all episodic type artwork where every image has to be different, unless you're going to go rule number 2, which is the lazy way. And you gave us some good ideas on how to make better YouTube thumbnails and do the A/B testing, which is, again, brilliant. How often do you go back and revise the artwork? You said it's a full-time job. As podcast managers, we can't do that as a full-time job. We'd be just like social media or YouTube managers, How often would you go back and revise thumbnails to try and get that better engagement?
Yeah. So one of the clients I work for has 1,100 videos on YouTube. They've been doing this for a long time. And when I stepped in about 4 months ago. And so every video from 3 to 4 months has the new optimization going. We've seen views double in those 3 to 4 months. It's these little tweaks. We've seen revenue double. We've seen subscribers 5x. And it's not from the show itself. It's just getting people to find the show. And so really you can make lots of content, but if no one watches it, what were you doing? There's a quote on my desk. I love it. And we'll get to answer your question. But the quote is from John Wooden, who's a coach. Do not mistake activity for achievement. They are
Mark
not
has that on his wall too.
Yes. It's not like
I will
really
now.
Fundamentally to understand, like, just doing things is not anything. And so to that end, so what I'm doing now is I'm filtering by the most popular videos. Because one of the beautiful things about YouTube is the perpetual evergreenness of all your content, potential evergreenness of all your content. People can watch content that was posted. In fact, for that client this YouTube video that they released 5 years ago is consistently the top performer every single month. For 5 years, they get $3,000, $4,000 a month from this video they put out 5 years ago. It attracts the most amount, other than the shorts feed, the most amount of new subscribers to the channel. And so what I'm doing is filtering by popular. What are the most viewed videos? I go and I check, did they pay for this? In which case, a bunch of them, they actually bought the views. And so there have been no views in the last 6 months. So that's not something you want to go back and optimize. But filtering what is still getting attention, I go and I look, what is the click-through rate? And again, analytics so valuable. Okay, well, it's still getting views, but that's a 2.4% click-through rate. If we increase that even 6 basis points, that results in for every basis point at this level of this channel, that's another 10, 20,000 views. If I get just 0.1% more people to click on the thumbnail. And so filtering by that, go back through the top 10, top 50, and particularly if it's been a while, and then go through and say, all right, I'm going to run the thumbnail test to begin. And you see, like, maybe the old thumbnail is perfectly fine, and then just leave it. If you increase, that's a significant benefit to your channel. Even getting a small improvement on the thumbnails. You can go back through and adjust the title. I would say best practice is to adjust the title if you're seeing under a threshold. So the probably most realistic best click-through rate you're going to get around 5%. If you're trucking in at 4, that's really solid. And so my goal is to get everything up to 4. And so it's a combination of the title and the thumbnail. Run the thumbnail test. See, is there something I've learned? Like, titles that I've been doing today are working better. I'm going to go back through and improve those. And particularly if your video is very searchable, like a topic like how to fix a car engine, that people
how to build a space shuttle.
How to build a space shuttle. Then you're going to keep refining that. You're going to go back to and align. That's a great point with cultural moments. If SpaceX keeps barely they blast off and they blow up, and this is in the news. Ooh, my video about this is super relevant. I'm going to go take the SpaceX image and update my thumbnail with this, so it seems more timely and more relevant. Aligning what's happening in culture with that is also a very strong way to improve.
That's interesting, because you mentioned earlier. Well, I was asking you the question, how often do you go back and update the artwork? But I think the answer you gave us was evaluate what's your best performers right now. And as a podcast editor or podcast manager, social media, whatever, we don't have 8 hours a day, 5 days a week to do this. So maybe we commit 1 hour to following what you're mentioning. Take an hour a week, look at the best performing ones, update those thumbnails, get the A/B testing, the 3 images testing going, and then the next week maybe revise, the next 5 or 10 or whatever we allocate time for. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and Andrew did mention that you need some time to wait for at least 5% variance, I think is what he said, between the different, between the different images, before you even get into the titles. In fact, you gave us some best practices. Some are industry specific, some are niche specific. You gave us some examples of host and guest and an image of the topic, whether it's hardware or something, some representative image, where the title should go, and then run that test. And then once you found the clear winner, and that needs some time to run, and then from there do some variations on that, and then from there do some variations on the title, the actual text title, to extrapolate from there, and then move on to the next ones. So I can see why it would need some time for YouTube to run that test to come out with the clear winner. Meanwhile, you can move on to other tasks.
Yeah, it'd be part of my upkeep time is checking the thumbnails and running those optimizations. Also, reflect on why did this one do so well? Okay, I look at now there's another analytic, the retention rate, and you can see, where do people drop off? Where do they spike up? This should inform your intro. Wow, I'm losing 50% of my audience within 30 seconds. Maybe I need to tighten my intro. Maybe I need to make it spicier. Maybe I need to jump right to the content. Wow, a bunch of people skipped the first 2 minutes, and I see a spike up 2 minutes in. What was I talking about then? What was I really gearing for? Then, of course, you're going to go back through and people are leaving comments. I should talk to them, respond to the people who took the time. Again, remember, rule number 2, people are super duper lazy. And the vast majority of your viewers, I would say it's about 5% who will comment, at most. And you have to facilitate that. Hey, for our next episode, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about what I should cover on this topic, or did I miss anything? They're going to respond that way. And then of the comments you're going to get 10% who love you, 10% who hate you. And then everyone in the middle that's really, you respond to the top 90% of people who just have a genuine question. So it's I could spend lots of my day just, here's another video, here's another video, here's another video, but pausing to play to win, right? You're not playing to play. You're playing to succeed. And a lot of the other elements that come in, really, you're going to see it pay off in the performance of your channel if you do these small tasks that really help optimize it.
This might be a great place to leave it, because I don't have any other questions. You've given me so much. So we're going to ask the listeners to email us, or we'll even have a link to email Andrew. So if you want to ask him questions specifically, what is Dawn Forge Media? Because that's your Gmail account. Dawn Forge Media, I guess, is your old YouTube show? Yeah,
so this was Dawn Forge Cast. And broadcast. Dawn Forge is my online alias, and that's it mainly came out of the professional tabletop gaming and video gaming I did for my channel. And so just carrying that forward, I've taken a long break from YouTube, from being a personality myself. And so rather than me broadcasting, it's me trying to help others grow their reach, grow their broadcast strength, connect with people. I'm really looking to partner with people and help them grow and improve, particularly if their message is something like, the world really needs to hear this now. There's a lot of really awful stuff and negativity. I want to help great messages, strong messages grow. And so that's where I'm at now. So that's the formalized company that spun out of my YouTube channel.
There we go. Let's grow this positive message and not worry about that negative stuff. Andrew Armstrong, thank you so much for joining us on Podcast Editor Mastermind Show. I know you're going to stay on with us. We're actually going to do a deeper dive, a how-to video for Podcast Editor Academy members, so they can actually see how some of this YouTube split testing tools work. Maybe what are some of the permissions that podcast editors, producers, managers need from their clients in order to help them out. But for those that don't have access to the Podcast Editor Academy videos, we'll have a link to your email right there in the show description. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Happy podcasting.